Yes, everybody seen the film? Yeah? Good. Right, well the first thing I'm going to show you is of course the actual splitting, which is still done by hand. There's no machines here to split them. They tried machines in the 60s, but what happened at that time was they were breaking over 75%. Now that means they could only split the finest quality. They could not split some of these. Now obviously it all starts in the rock face on the quarry, and that's the picture there. And as you can see, the initial split, now what I'm telling you now is how they used to do it. It's very different today. But the initial split is in the middle. After that's been done, they would measure every split to 2.5 inch thick. And by the way, they didn't have tape measures. What they used to measure them was their own chisels, because that is 2.5 inch across. Alright? So that's what they would use to measure them. Once...
I'm going to be cheeky and ask you where that's come from.
Rotherham.
Ah, so it's the Phillips Travel Barnsley, I am. I thought with the accent, we listened to his accent more than...
We're all from Rotherham.
I thought you would. Yeah.
Aye, we'll just be on about them. I mean, it's Premier League, if we don't know. Barnsley.
Vivian Quarry. Hospital. And we'll view Llanberis from the Quarrymen Hospital. Yep. Outside the Slate Museum. Inside the Welsh Slate Museum.
Here and there on the galleries, or would form part of the production shed. The pattern was much the same in all the other slate quarries throughout Wales, and the cavern became an important meeting place for the men, and its function became something far more than that of a mere canteen. So what went on in the cavern? The usual procedure was to appoint someone, usually someone getting on in years or whose lungs were full of dust, or who was in some way disabled, to look after the cavern, to light a fire first thing every morning, and to make sure that the fountain, or the enormous urn on the top of the stove, was on the boil when the rest of the crew turned up for work at 7:30 in the morning. The cavern's caretaker would be given a few pence a day for his work, and for keeping the cavern looking fairly respectable for the rest of the day, as well as for keeping the fountain on the boil.
Old shoring shed. Shed. Another soaring shed.
there had to be maintained. Steam engines, all sorts of trucks and wagons, slate sawing equipment, miles of railway track and so on. Most of the machinery made was of cast iron, and one of the greatest achievements of these workshops was that the foundry enabled the quarry to produce its own components without having to rely on outside suppliers. The museum staff will be pleased to explain the working and skills of the foundry and the associated skills of making wooden patterns. After covering the floor with mould over a period of a week or so, it would be time to fire the large circular furnace in the middle of the foundry floor. The work would begin early in order to build up a white ground drawn into the furnace from the bellows in the little pan. As soon as the contents of the furnace had melted, the clay plug beneath and a full ladle of iron was poured on. Then,
Built inside the foundry.
in the bar of health and medical anyone can develop the past and manage to produce the perfect
But all this is done by machines now. There you've got the measurement there. That's ready for the roof now. There's a hole there, and there for the nuts.
of the slate in the Slate Museum. What was it now?
Yes, everybody seen the film? Yeah? Good. Right, well the first thing I'm going to show you is of course the actual splitting, which is still done by hand. There's no machines here to split them. They tried machines in the 60s, but what happened at that time was they were breaking over 75%. Now that means they could only split the finest quality. They could not split some of these. Now obviously it all starts in the rock face on the quarry. That's the picture there. And as you can see, the initial split, now what I'm telling you now is how they used to do it. It's very different today. But the initial split is in the middle. After that's been done, they would measure every split to 2.5 inch thick. And by the way, they didn't have tape measures. What they used to measure them was their own chisels, because that is 2.5 inch across. Alright? So that's what they would use to measure them. Once all the splitting's been done, they would then of course take them through to the sawmill to be sawn, and they'd saw them just outside the actual size. And then they would come to the splitter. Now, why did they do them at 2.5 inch thick? Well, quite simply, slate is always best split in half. Alright, they work much better if you split them in half. And by doing that with 2.5 inch thick, now the minimum thickness of a slate at that time used to be 1/6 of an inch. So if you do that, you get 16 roofing slates That's 1/6 of an inch. Yeah, so that's why they did them at 2.5 inch thick. The type I've got now is very good. It's very, very easy to split. And as you can see, we only get small ones these days. Now, this one, however, is not so easy to split. All right? That one's a lot more difficult. You really have to work these, working them very, very slowly down the grain. And that's a natural fault in the slate itself. Okay? Oops. Now this is the one I'm going to show you. And if we've got time, I'll try and show you the other one as well, if you want to see that. Yeah? It's easy as that. That's the easy one. There you are. Nothing to it on that one, was there? No. That was very, very easy. And in fact, if I had a finer chisel, that would split again. That's such a good quality. Let's see if we can do the same with this. Did you hear the sound, the different sound? That means that this is harder and more brittle. It has also got a nasty fault in it, right there and there. So the chances are it will not split through that. Okay? This one is already faltering, it's coming to one side. I'm just pulling it back into the middle a bit, because you can adjust some of them, not all of them. And now it's gone very, very hard. Doesn't want to go any further than that fault. That's, if you just imagine a piece of wood with a knot in it, that's exactly the same, just like a knot. So what I'm going to do, take it out, place it in the side. By the way, they will not split from the side. So all I'm doing is creating a path for it to go. And now I'll come towards it. There you are. All right. So don't be fooled when you see that film, how easy it was done. It's not that easy, believe you me. Alright, well there you are. I've shown you two different types of slate. Two that doesn't work the same. Yeah, well, it's new to us anyway, which is a dust extractor. Very, very important today, health and safety. Alright, you hear the sound. Now there's your dressing knife, same as the bar, spring steel. To measure them, there's your measuring stick. And because it's all obviously 10 inches, not metric like today, and from the pin to this first notch is 5.5 inch, and then it goes up to 6, 2 half-inch measurements. Afterwards it goes up in inches to 14, and then every 2 inch up to 26. Okay? Now, you see these today, these have been sawn all the way around. In the old days they didn't do that. All they did was saw the heads. Sometimes the bottom, not always. The sides then would have been all kinds of shape. Now when you come to squaring on here, it's done by eye. There's no guide on here. So that means, of course, a lot of practice. But as these have been sawn all the way around, well, it's not too bad, is it? No? But I assure you, you know, the difference in this is half an inch between the top and the bottom. There is half an inch difference in it. I measured them earlier on, actually. So let's have a look. Here we go. That's your finished slate. And that now, of course, is ready for the roof. Just 2 holes for the nails, one there and the other one there. 2 nails in each one. Easy?
And the roof slate.
Yes, it is. What do you think? Think that was easy? Of course it wasn't. I've done it once or twice, you haven't? Right, let's have a look at this one. Let's try this one as well. By the way, in the old days they would never accept that. They would not accept that in the old days. They do accept them now, if it's not on the other side. Alright? But in the old days they would not. Too late. Got to dispose of what before. Right, so there you are, that's another one. Now one man in this fashion in the old days could achieve between 400 and 500 slates a day. Alright, and there went small ones like these, more of the middle range as you see there. With today's electric machines, they can achieve 2,000 in a day. Alright, so that's the difference. Now, of course, when you were learning on this, the foreman used to come round to check them. And the first thing he would check would be that you had 4 corners, not 3 and a bit. Alright, you had to have 4, especially when you were learning on here. You would now check, of course, if you were dressing square by placing 2 together like this. And afterwards you would turn them round, place them back to back, and hopefully, of course, they should match again. There you are. I think you would pass those 2. But say now if they were leaning like this, 3/8, half an inch, you would not pass them. What would he do? Quite simply, he would break them up across here, and of course you would lose money. With the bigger ones, they wouldn't break them, they will tell you to cut them down to the next available size. And again you would lose money, because bigger the slate, bigger the pay. Now for you to get paid for 100, you had to give the company 128. In other words, that was the quarryman's 100. Now the owners here said through transportation by rail off the quarry and onto the ships, they were losing 28% in breakages. So the men had to pay for that. Good old days? What do you reckon? they used to make them. Now with the waste, now from
this actual slate dust in mastic is because it sticks to anything. So obviously a human lung, once it's in there, you'll never get rid of it. Now obviously accidents as well, they're very, very common. Believe it or not, this simple bar here is the most common cause of accidents in the quarry. These haven't been used for about 60 years now in actual manufacture of slates. But we use them here just to demonstrate how the traditional craft was. What would happen, the left-hander, particularly left-hander, my father was a left-hander, came to work in the quarry. Now, no piece of equipment was designed for the left-hander. So, you know, they would come into the quarry, they would sit down there, they would give an investing knife, and they had to swing that with their right hand. Okay? So, what took place was, you hold the slate like that would come down and whack across the turn like that. And within 5 minutes, my father had gone through to the bone, and that was it. But in them days, there was no running home to your mother, there was no running down to your solicitor and a compensation letter produced next day. You carried on working with a bit of handkerchief around your hand. You know, they were hard men, truly hard, not like these hooligans running around these cities now. These were tough guys. You know, if you put some of these guys in that quarry, they'd be crying onto their mothers by the end of the day in the conditions these men were. This quarry closed 2 days, you know, 100 years, that's the only time it closed, because the snow was so thick and they couldn't work. So, you know, it must have snowed a hell of a lot for them to close the quarry down. Because men would be hanging on ropes on the side of that mountain in all weathers. They didn't have all the specialist clothing we've got today, all these hats and all this gear these climbers have got. They just have one rope around the middle and their tools in their hand. And it takes guts, and it takes a tough guy to do that, a real man to do that, you know. They weren't playing, they were doing it for a living, and the times were hard. Anyway, we'll dress the slate down after we've split one anyway, and hopefully we'll walk away with 10 fingers. Okay. So on the yard there, when you take a walk around after we've finished here, you'll see blocks of slate being dampened down by a mist of water. That's not to stop dust or anything like that, it's to stop them naturally shrinking. What happens if they dry? You cannot split them. The best guy in the world cannot split dried out slate. It's like wood, basically. Once it dries, it starts naturally cracking down the strata, and basically you tap it with a hammer and it'll break to pieces. Okay? So it cannot be split once it's dry. The problem we've got here, that some of these blocks are out on that yard for a month or so before we actually get them here in front of us. In a quarry, 24 hours, nice and fresh, and that's it. That's my excuse, I'm sticking to it, okay? Split it, we've got a wide chisel, it's about 3 inches wide and quite thin. It's not sharp at all. You know, you don't need it sharp, basically. And a mallet, which is hardwood, covered in copper to give it a bit of weight. You do not want to be knocking like a madman, you know, it's just gentle taps really. Everything has got to be done gently to split the slate properly. Now to put words into practice. Always start from the middle. That's not going to split. You can see how it's splitting that side. Okay, nicely in the middle layer. Turn it round. It's about 3 different splits there. I'll turn it over, I'll try and split it from the other side. see how we get on with it. There's some look promising at the moment. No, not promising at all. That's got an actual fault in it as well, which is here. That's probably, I don't know, a jellyfish or something like that that's left an imprint in the slate, you know, millions of years ago. So we'll try this one again. So if this breaks, I think it'll go around here. This stuff in the quarry would be thrown in the skip, basically. You know, I wouldn't even bother with this. It would be gone. You couldn't spend this much time playing around with it, you know? We've got all day now. Can you see how that's split, you know, yeah? The only problem is there's another split down there going exactly the opposite way. Okay? You see it? So the three of us will be able to split that. See what's happened there with that piece? That would be skipped really, but at least we've got one slate out of what basically was rubbish. You can see on that surface there how poor it was really. So we'll put that down, we'll throw that away after. Well, like I say, it didn't take that much time in the quarry really. You know, you wouldn't be playing around like that. Because the blocks you would have in the quarry basically be about, that wide and that thick and that tall. Because what you're aiming for, the common roofing slates are the 2012s and the 2010s. Those big princesses, 2414s as well. The bigger the slate, the bigger the pay, and that goes today as well on production. Because obviously, the bigger they are, the better they are on the roofs, Once you go over the princesses, they're too big then. They become too heavy then to carry up on the roofs. Right, we'll hide them there in case we get any prospective hooligans coming here wanting weaponry. Put them there. Should be a surprising method of dressing down a slate. And a man could possibly achieve 400 slates a day. Now to get paid for 400, what I will say, I'll put it like this. To get paid for 100 slates, you had to give the quarry 128 slates. So, for argument's sake, you made 400 slates in a day, which you would possibly achieve, you would get paid for 288 slates. That wasn't very fair, but what they used to say, if you look at that picture there, that was transportation. They used to say that 28% of the slates were broken in transportation. So they had the men always really. It was hard enough to produce 400 slates as it was, let alone take away 28% of that, It was absolutely crazy. Okay, there were breakages, but not many. So these quarry owners, they had total power really. The men were at their mercy. If they didn't work, they didn't live. the families were out on the streets because the quarry owner owned everything. You know, literally, you know, we were slaves really, to be quite honest. You know, it was that bad, going back 100 years ago. But there we are, we got through that, and like I said, quarrying today is a good occupation, touch wood. And a good rockman now can earn up to £800 a week. You know, so it's a good wage now. So I've got a lot of friends who have gone to college, they were in school with me, and they've earned probably less than I have. You know, I was hopeless in school, I was always playing around, and I'm sure my teachers were glad to get into me. To be quite honest, you know, I was never at school. But I've always earned a living. I'm a plasterer by trade, and I've never been out to work because I can use my hands. And you know, today in this country, you know, the skills of using your hands are basically disappearing fast. So anybody who's good with their hands now will earn a living, thankfully. This funny noise, yeah, that's an extractor fan, obviously to keep you safe and to keep me safe as well. We didn't have that in the old days. That's the measuring stick. That's still in imperial, all in inches. And funnily enough, even on construction, I still work in inches. Even though I can't use millimetres, I much prefer the old inches, you know. The millimetres came in when I was about 7, 8 years old in school, and I sort of spent 4 or 5 years trying to grasp it. I do know it now. It was very confusing being in school, working in, you know, yards, feet and inches, and overnight everything changed. But the quarry still use the imperial sizes, I'm glad to say. So when you go to a builder's merchant now and ask for a slate, you'll ask for a 2012, a 2010 or whatever. You know, you won't sort of convert that to millimetres because they looked after you. Okay. That's one slate. I've actually trimmed a few mil off that actually, so that would really be thrown away. I'm not going to waste any more today because I'm running out of slates. All you need then, hole there and a hole there. And then that would go on your roofing battens like you see on that little doll's house that we've in there. So that's it. These slates now are guaranteed for 100 years from the quarry. Now put it like this, nobody's ever come back to claim on that guarantee. Okay, so it must be good. If anybody ever does, yeah. Like them holes in them. Nowadays you'd have a simple tool like that, invented by the Germans again. Damn clever these Germans. So you can cut the slate any shape you want. Like cutting paper. If you're working on the roof and you want to start a valley off, you know, you've got the tool in your hand, you don't have to go up and down all the time. They're actually working in situ. If you want to put a hole in a slate, and that's it, and that's ready to go on the roof now. Literally tons of this stuff in the air in a quarry. Now ironically today, I hope we've all cleaned our teeth this morning, it's actually used in toothpaste, it's used in cosmetics. So all the ladies will got makeup on, lipstick, mascara, you know, talcum powders, all that kind of thing. Slate dust is actually in that. But ironically, and I think this is the biggest one of all, it's used now in homeopathic medicines as well. It's obviously purified first. All this crushed waste is sent off to Germany. Again, the Germans, you know, they're always one step ahead, and they actually, you know, may design all these products around the slate dust, you know. So that, I think that was the most surprising thing to me, a thing that actually wiped out a generation of men nowadays actually does some good. And obviously modern science has taken us forward to that, you know. So quite amazing thing really. It's got, oh, apparently there's a lot of zinc and calcium in it. That's what they tell me. I don't want to find out myself, but there we are. Right, then any questions now?
Did you not